Reserve your spot today on the Tuscany Transformation Retreat, June 15th through the 21st, 2025. Reconnect with your inner beauty, power, and abundance. Come join Dr. Larissa Sharapova and myself, Priscilla Koblenz, for 6 nights and 5 full days in the beautiful Tuscan countryside. We'll be staying at a villa that has a gorgeous swimming pool and hot tub, a Turkish bath, as well as this amazing yoga studio overlooking the olive trees and the vineyards. We'll offer daily yoga, meditation, breath work, sound healing, spa treatments, a Tuscan bike ride, a pasta cooking class, olive oil and wine tastings, as well as amazing, amazing food. For a more detailed itinerary, check out our website and reserve your spot today. We've got 9 spots available.
So sometimes in a constellation, we're looking for a connection of something that happened, a trauma that happened to your grandparents or your great-grandparents, gone back 4 or 7 generations, even if you don't know them, but we know you had them because you're here. It's a very beautiful way of working and solving problems.
Welcome to Harmonic Alignment,
a podcast that explores the new frontier of energy medicine,
bridging the gap between Western medicine and quantum physics,
giving you easy and practical solutions.
Guided by
me, Dr. Larissa Sharipova,
and me, Priscilla Koblenz. Join us on a journey discovering your harmonic alignment. On today's episode of Harmonic Alignment, Family Constellation Therapy, Dr. Larissa Sharapova connects with Caren Borowsky, a family constellation therapist since 2014. Caren is a gifted energy healer. Her dedication to the healing arts includes study at the Brennan School of Healing, Center for Intentional Living, various bodywork techniques, shamanic dream work, and the Hellinger Institute of DC. She's comfortable moving between the worlds, communicating with ancestors, guides, and animals. Her years of ongoing study of dreams provides her with the skill and the language of the soul. Using the structure of family constellations, she offers individual sessions, ongoing groups, and is a founding member of the Family Constellation Alliance of Greater Philadelphia. This is an absolutely fascinating conversation about a wonderful healing modality. Hope you enjoy this episode.
Hi, Caren. I'm so glad to interview you today on very interesting topic. And probably a lot of people don't know about family constellations. So we're going to go deeper with some questions, learn more about what it is, what it can do for people. Can you explain what family constellations are and how they can differ from other therapeutic practices or modalities?
Yes. So Family Constellations was developed by a man named Bert Hellinger. He described it as a way of solving human problems. And the difference between family constellations and other healing modalities or therapy is that it takes into account many generations. So sometimes in a constellation, we're looking for a connection of something that happened, a trauma that happened to your grandparents or your great-grandparents, gone back 4 or 7 generations, even if you don't know them, but we know you had them because you're here. It's a very beautiful way of working and solving problems.
And specifically for you, how did you first become interested in family constellation and how it led you to pursue the professional career?
I started as an energy healer. I'm a graduate of the Brennan School. I was one of her first students. And so I had this background in energy. And a dear friend of mine from that school told me that she was deep in and that I should look into it. And I went to a workshop with Jakob and Sieglinde Schneider from Germany. They came to Washington, DC, and they did this workshop. And I went, oh my God, this is it. I had some quite powerful experiences there, standing in as a representative. And also the constellation that they did for me is still working. It's still moving through my family system. So it was quite powerful work. And that was 10 years ago, more.
So what type of issues or challenges can that session or therapy address, and the specific problem, physical, emotional?
The constellating tool is a wonderful tool. It can be used and applied to almost any situation. There are a few situations where it doesn't work. I tried to do a friendship. That didn't work out so well, but it can work for health. It can work for dreams. It can work for money issues. It can work for business issues. It can work for finding a property or selling a property. There's just many things, but it really works well for understanding and reorienting your perspective of what happened in your family and how that's impacting you today and maybe your children today. It just changes the scope of perspective and changes the story that we tell ourselves about our family. So it can be used for many different issues. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. For example, if I have some chronic pain in a certain part of the body, I cannot find the reason why I have this pain. I check everything. I did all kind of diagnostic and nobody can tell me what root cause is.
Yes.
Would Family Constellation help me with that to find out?
Yes, there are actually facilitators who specialize and came out of the health profession, and their work is around health and healing issues. It's not been my specialty, but I have done it. I've used it for that purpose. And people find it helpful because it just informs their understanding of what's going on differently.
Because I know that pain can be represented as different emotions. And sometimes if we don't know what emotions store in that kind of area of pain, that's what we can find out from the session, right? Where it comes from, yes. Emotions, and how it's connected to ancestors and their trauma, or even their pain. Correct?
Yes. So what I've seen done, and I've done it a few times myself, is they set up representatives for the illness, the diagnosed illness, the symptom, and the message, and then the patient.
As I understand, there is a group and also personal session. So explain what's the difference and how it's happening during the session. Yeah.
So traditionally, it's done in a group, this work, and a circle of people gathers, and there's one person who is the client or the seeker, and they present an issue. And then the facilitator asks them to choose a person from the circle who will represent them, who will represent any other members. And then the client places them in the circle. And that's the constellation. Then we're looking at what is the relationship between these people and or this health issue or whatever the representatives are in for. It can be quite surprising what emerges from that. And then there are ways to make more space, or there are ways to disentangle when things are too close and you can't breathe because it's too much closeness, to make space. It's quite an original way of working with issues.
And I even experienced some of your sessions in a group, and I feel it's very powerful emotionally and also energetically. And I even feel that energy shifted through the sessions, even being as a client or also being as a representative. So I think it's more, during the session, it's more energetic connection between people, right? You step in somebody's energy. That's how I understand it, correct?
Yes.
Can you describe how a personal session works?
It's not that different, except that it's just one-on-one. I can do it on Zoom with a camera. I set up the constellation using stones on a board, and you pick a stone to represent your mother or the health issue or whatever it is. And then we wait and see. We set up the constellation. What's happening? What's not moving? Who's looking, who's not looking, what are they looking at? We just sort of allow the information to come from the field. We call it the field, the family field or the systemic field. And then we go from there. It's different when you have a group of people informing of what their experience is as representatives in these places, but it still works one-on-one. You don't quite get the detail.
Because stones do not speak, correct?
I'm doing the speaking for all the stones.
Oh, okay. And so you shift in energy during the sessions. And how long is the session?
So a private session usually lasts an hour and a half to 2 hours. That's one-on-one. And a group constellation, there's a couple of ways to do it. I have groups that come for 2.5 hours, Thursday morning or Thursday evening. And we usually do about 2.5 constellations in that time. It's quite moving. It's quite moving because we get to touch each other's family fields. In a group, you get that feeling of, my family is just like your family, and I've stepped into a place that coincidentally is the same story or is the same part. And being representative, I think, is such a big healing thing to do for another person and for their family system. And it gives us insight into our own system. It's quite an experience.
So you're saying that it's not only a person who comes with this specific problem get healed or get resolved with different issue, but people who represent the family member also can heal from their own traumas or issues.
Yes. Bert said anybody who is in the space is getting work. You don't have to have it be your issue. You don't have to even be a representative. But the way I imagine it is that all of our ancestors are learning from all of your ancestors, and all of your ancestors are teaching and learning from all of their ancestors. And so we really get connected on this very universal level. We don't even know how used to we are being in our own little tribal space, like our family, and then maybe our extended family is our tribe, and that's who we stay with. But really, my tribe, just like your tribe just like their tribe. It's really quite universal.
And of course, we heal in the community. That's why it's good to have a group or even extend the community. And that's how we interconnected. I believe energy doesn't have a space and time. So that's why we can travel in different generations, ancestors, and time space.
Yes. Time is very tricky in constellations because we're talking to people who have been, quote, dead for a long time, but here they are, and they're telling us exactly what, their experience is and what happened, and they're alive. So they're standing up and they're talking to us, but this is your great-great-grandfather. So it's quite amazing. Oftentimes there's so much heart in it. On the other side, these ancestors want us to know that we're loved. They really want us to know that they're sending their blessing. Here's the other thing. In America, we are a land of immigrants. We all came from someplace else unless we're Native Americans. All of the Aboriginal cultures honored and spoke with and had communication with their ancestors. That was part of their everyday experience. But all these immigrants who came rushing over here because of war or trauma or whatever happened, better opportunity, they lost touch. Oh no, we left them back there. That was where the suffering is. I'm not going there. I'm just going to be here, and I'm going to keep going forward.
Start a new life here.
Start a new life, a new way. And we forget that we've left our ancestral roots. We've left our ancestral roots, and it's possible to reconnect those ancestral roots and have them here. But it's also important to acknowledge what was left and what was lost. There's a thousand reasons why people did this.
And do we need to know all our family trees or traumas happen in our family, or if we need to know our grandparents and great-grandparents to do this work?
No, you don't need to know anybody. It's nice to have that information. And sometimes the family stories kind of give a little more detail about what might have happened or what happened. But those stories usually don't tell the whole story, or the part of the story of, oh, my mother died when I was 20 and I was bereft. I was completely bereft. And when I went to have children, I couldn't be there because I didn't have my mother. So these things, they're heartbreaking, but it can be looked at and healed. You can't undo the past, but you can get a different relationship to it.
Kind of look at the trauma or something happened differently, have a different perception.
Yes.
So can I look in a family constellation what's preventing me to grow personally, business-wise, professionally, or something like that? Like, for example, this feeling, I don't know where it's coming from. I know it's not mine.
Right.
And it did not create in this my physical life.
Right, because your conscious mind is saying, I'm going for it, I can do it. Yes, yes, yes. Those intuitions about ourselves, those feelings about ourselves, they can be examined with constellation work.
So sometimes because it's not my conscious awareness, right? But it might be unconscious and come from my previous generations. Right?
Yes, and it can be out of loyalty to them, or out of loyalty to a parent, that I won't be better than you. I won't have more than you. I'll be just like you.
What people should expect happen after the session, after the family constellation?
That's a good question. And I never know the answer to it. So I had one client where we were finishing a constellation. He hadn't talked to his sister in 5 years, and we're just getting to the end of the constellation. She called. So sometimes it's really fast. Sometimes it can take 18 months. It's hard to connect all the dots of what the changes have been, but I always think of it as the ancestors, they are in this no time zone. And so their processing is very fluid, and it takes a while for things to shift in that place. I can't even put words to what that place is. And so sometimes it has to shift there first, and then it'll come into our field. Sometimes it's immediate, sometimes within a week or two, a month. I just never know. So there's also, we have our personal energetic system that if we go into therapy, that's what we're kind of dealing with, the emotions and our thoughts. And then there's the family energetic system. Then there's the tribal energetic system, ancestral. And then there's the collective. And there's more after that. So some constellations have to move through all of that to get to you.
Yes.
Some constellations, you change and all of that shifts.
Mm-hmm.
I just never know how things are going to land and what change is going to happen as a result.
And it doesn't matter if it's a small issue or it's a big issue.
Yes. So in my work, I'm looking for the source of where did this start? What's not moving, or what's gotten fixed in this internal system? And that's where I like to work. Everybody who does constellation work has a different kind of take on it and has a different way in. That's also one of the beautiful things about constellation work. If you don't like working with me, you can find someone else you do like working with. It's just got huge variety and huge potential of approaches. Different facilitators will see things differently than the next facilitator. So yeah.
Because of their background, where they come from, or because they do more training, or they're interested in the different things.
All of that. All of
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
So there is a lot of misconception about family constellations. How would you debunk all those misconceptions?
I think one of the misconceptions is, as a representative, you are playing a role, like you're acting that part.
Mm-hmm.
Like you've been invited to step in as someone's mother, and that it's all acting or role playing.
So it's not true.
No. When we talk about being a representative in someone's constellation, we ask people to just breathe gently, feel your body, watch and see if there are any differences, like, oh, my head hurts on the left side. It wasn't hurting when I was sitting down before this, but now it really hurts. And we learned that, this person had experienced abuse. It's not usually that simple, but, we just watch for any physical symptoms or emotions, or I don't want to look at them, or I hate them. You're just looking at another person, but you have these strong feelings that come up. I hate that person. That's an awful person. I don't want to look at that person. I'm going to turn away. This isn't the person you are. This is the person you're representing.
So you become an energy of that person who you represent with, and that's
Yes.
how energy show up in your body,
Yes.
physically, emotionally.
Yes. And sometimes you get the thoughts and story. I was standing in for someone's father, and at the end of the constellation and things were feeling really beautiful, I turned to my wife and I said, oh, let's dance. And it turns out that her father loved to dance. Her parents loved to dance.
Mm.
So you can get that kind of information. It just feels very, very wonderful to be able to let it come through you. Now, there are difficult things that come through as well, and they can be uncomfortable. They can also be frightening, but it's all part of the human experience. And it's if it's not too much, to be able to stay with it, you learn something. You learn about the human experience and the way they are and what happened to them. You can kind of feel like something happened that is this way. It's an infinitely curious, mysterious work.
Yes, and I'm enjoying your experience that I come as a client, as a representative, and also you can just observe if it's your first experience or you want to learn more about the sessions and the work. You can just observe it and see if it resonates with you.
And if I'm not the facilitator for you, there's tons more that are also doing beautiful facilitation work, and somebody else that might be more in your resonant field. Yeah.
And for you as a facilitator, how do you deal with all these emotions, with the energy that you help to create during the session, and also how you sustain yourself?
Oh, that's a good question. I think that at this point, I don't feel overwhelmed by feelings, by emotions. There's something that I can be with, I can be present to, and allow them, but not be flooded and overwhelmed by them. And there are tools that we use with the constellation work. Sometimes we use sprays that help to clear spaces, but mostly we just allow the emotion to reside in the space. And then we kind of work with the representatives to see where it comes from. What's this force behind it, when it's overwhelming? And oftentimes when we have very big feelings about something, it's coming from something that happened in the ancestral field. And when the ancestors are at peace, because they've been seen or recognized for what their life struggles were, or their traumas were, or who they were. Oftentimes we'll find people had gay members of their family who never came out because it was so dangerous in most of the world. And that secret that was known but never spoken can hold a lot of pain and loss in it. And when that comes out and is seen, the family, the whole system, because we acknowledge that love is love. We include the ones that were pushed out. We bring them all in. And that the system can look at that, even though in their lifetime they could not look at it, but now they can, with support and work, they can look at it, and it becomes a peaceful system. The family comes to peace. And It's just the most remarkable feeling to feel like, oh, this is okay. So to me, this is a way of making peace really in the world, but it's just one family at a time. And so for myself, I just take care of myself. I drink lots of water, I sleep well, and I exercise. And if something's hanging on me, I look at it.
Good, good. How about for future generation? For example, I believe from the physical perspective and working with even women who wants to get pregnant, like, yes, you clean your body physically, so you have a beautiful and healthy children. And of course, if you know about all your emotions and ancestral trauma, you can heal it now before you get pregnant and have children. That's the best way. But what if you already have kids? What if you didn't know about all this work, about the trauma and how we can work on it? Can it still work for your kids who already are there in the world?
With children, the parents do the work. You don't bring your children to a constellation. Some people say until they're 18, then they have to do their own work. But children are not growing up as fast as they used to. So I say 25, it's probably when they can start. It varies. The issues that the children are struggling with usually are things between the parents.
So they're always connected to the parents energetically. And while parents work through a family constellation, they heal the relationship and whatever emotional they have.
It's like clearing the umbilical cords that connect us to our parents in the past and to our children in the future. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you said umbilical cords, and it's usually mother who have umbilical cords. Do only mother do this work, or the father is also?
No, we all have cords. We all have cords. Mothers, fathers, children, grandparents. Yep, we're all corded to one another.
What would you say to people who would like to learn more about this work? What resources do you recommend for those who are interested to learn?
Well, there's several levels of resources. I would say a Turkish TV show called True Selves that has constellations as one of the big parts of the show. So that's quite a easily accessible one. Then there's some books that I would recommend. It's called It Didn't Start With You.
I read that book. Yes, it's very good.
Mark Wolin. Yeah. And then there's a bookstore at the Hellinger Institute of DC that has many, many titles of books.
Okay. And how people find you if they would like to work with you?
The best way to find me is through my email address. You send me an email at karenborowsky55@gmail.com or to call me. If you want to be on my list for group constellations or set up a private session, that's the best way.
So anything else you would like the people to know before we finish?
I think what I would like people to know is that it is possible to feel peaceful in life, and that it takes work, takes attention to how we are being in the world, but it is possible to have that. And I think it's a great gift.
Yeah, thank you, Caren, for all your wisdom and your work in the world, changing community and the person one at a time.
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much for this lovely opportunity.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure to be with you, Larissa.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of Harmonic Alignment. If something resonated with you, we would love to hear about it. Please consider leaving us a 5-star review and subscribing so you don't miss an upcoming episode. Thank you. The information contained in this podcast is provided for informational purposes only and not intended for the purpose of diagnosing, treating, curing, or preventing any disease. Before using any products referenced on the podcast, consult with your healthcare provider. Carefully read all labels and directions. The products and information received through the podcast should not be used to replace a consultation or advice from your healthcare provider. If you suspect you have a medical problem or have any healthcare questions, please promptly call your healthcare provider. This podcast, including Dr. Larissa Sharapova and Priscilla Koblenz and the producers, are not responsible for any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained in this podcast. This podcast may contain endorsements and advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct financial benefit to the product or services referenced.